My sister made sure everyone at her wedding knew I was the pathetic single one. But when a stranger whispered, "Act like you're with me," everything changed. By the end of the night, my humiliation became her worst nightmare. She seated me at the reject table, mocked my love life, and turned her wedding into my public embarrassment. But she didn't realize, karma was sitting right beside me in a charcoal suit. The Grand Crest Manor glittered with golden chandeliers, a venue fit for royalty. Guests arrived in shimmering gowns, waiters floated by with trays of champagne, and the air buzzed with polite excitement. To anyone else, it looked like a perfect fairy tale wedding. But for Claire Bennett, it felt more like walking into an ambush. She stood at the check-in table clutching her clutch purse and a nervous smile. "Table 14, the attendant said, handing her the card with scripted calligraphy. Claire's smile faltered. Table 14. She already knew what that meant, the singles table. The one her sister Sabrina had no doubt chosen deliberately. Sabrina's maid of honor, Tessa Grant, appeared beside her, clipboard in hand and a sugar-sweet grin on her face. "Oh, Claire, let me walk you to your seat," she chirped, voice high and false. She led Claire through a sea of flower-filled tables toward a corner near the kitchen doors where waiters disappeared behind swinging panels. There, tucked in the shadows, was table 14. The guests already seated looked up briefly before returning to their conversations. Two of Sabrina's single co-workers scrolled on their phones. One man she vaguely recognized from college gave a tight nod. And then there was Aunt Ruth Wellington, fanning herself and muttering about how loud the band was. "Ah, Claire dear," Aunt Ruth called out. "Still not married? Such a shame with that pretty face. Have you thought about lowering your standards?" Claire forced a polite laugh, pretending the sting didn't reach her. She had spent weeks choosing the perfect navy dress, had even gotten her hair professionally done, hoping, perhaps foolishly, to make a good impression. But sitting there, near the clatter of dishes and the smell of garlic butter wafting from the kitchen, she felt small and disposable. From across the glittering room, Sabrina stood radiant in her lace gown, posing for photos with her new husband, Daniel Whitmore. Every detail screamed luxury: the champagne tower, the 12-piece band, the orchids hanging from crystal fixtures. And every so often, Sabrina's gaze flickered toward Claire with a smug satisfaction that told her exactly what this seating plan had been about. Claire tried to focus on her water glass, on her breathing, on anything other than the burning humiliation. Around her, the laughter from the main tables sounded like a language she no longer spoke. She was invisible here, deliberately hidden away like an afterthought. As the first dance began, couples swayed under soft golden lights. Claire clapped with the rest, but inside she felt the familiar ache of being left out. She had promised herself she wouldn't let Sabrina get to her, but as she watched her sister twirl gracefully in Daniel's arms, she couldn't shake the sense that this entire night had been orchestrated not to celebrate love, but to remind her of what she lacked. And in that glittering hall full of joy and envy, Claire silently vowed, "This will be the last time my sister gets to humiliate me." Growing up, Claire Bennett had always been the responsible one, the calm, steady sister who helped with chores, stayed out of trouble, and made her parents proud, until her younger sister, Sabrina, discovered that charm and beauty could get her everything Claire worked for. Their rivalry wasn't the fiery, screaming kind. It was subtle, polished, and poisonous. Sabrina didn't raise her voice. She used whispers, comparisons, and that sugary smile that made cruelty sound like concern. It started small remarks about Claire's choice in clothes or how career-driven women often scare off men. But over time, the teasing sharpened into something meaner. When Sabrina got engaged to Daniel Whitmore, a wealthy investment banker from an old money family, she took every opportunity to remind Claire of her single status. At family dinners, Sabrina would sigh dramatically before saying, "Claire, you still haven't met anyone? Maybe you should try those dating apps again. I mean, you're not getting any younger." Their mother, Margaret Bennett, would offer a sympathetic pat on the hand. "Sweetheart, your sister's just looking out for you," she'd say gently. But Claire saw the flicker of agreement in her mother's eyes, the same pitying look that said you really should be married by now. Their father, George, would clear his throat awkwardly, trying to steer the conversation towards safer ground. "So, Claire, how's work at the marketing firm?" he'd ask, his voice a quiet lifeline. But it never lasted. Sabrina had a way of dragging things back. "You know, Daniel says he has a few single friends. Maybe I should set you up. You can't be picky forever, sis." Claire would smile tightly, stabbing her salad with unnecessary precision. She had learned that silence was safer than feeding Sabrina's appetite for reaction. The morning of the wedding should have been different. It was Sabrina's big day after all. But instead of calling to share excitement, Sabrina phoned her with faux sympathy. "Claire, honey," she began sweetly, "I know today might be hard for you, seeing everyone so happy and in love. Just try not to look too miserable in the photos, okay? And maybe don't spend all night chatting with the bartender again." Claire had stared at her phone long after the call ended, her jaw tight. That last remark had been a reference to their cousin Joanne's wedding 2 years earlier, when Claire, cornered by pitying relatives, had found refuge in small talk with the bartender. Somehow, Sabrina had turned even that harmless act into gossip. Now, as Claire sat at table 14, the memory burned. Every moment of kindness Sabrina had ever shown her was a lie wrapped in condescension. She could almost hear her sister's voice in her head. Poor Claire, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. But something inside Claire had shifted. The old version of her would have quietly endured it all, laughed it off, and gone home in silence. But not tonight. Not after years of being the family's favorite cautionary tale. Tonight, she wasn't just Sabrina's target. She was done being her victim. By the time dinner was served, the reception hall shimmered like a magazine spread. White roses cascading from the ceiling, a string quartet playing softly, and Sabrina gliding from table to table like she owned the night. For everyone else, it was magical. For Claire Bennett, it was slow-motion torture. She just finished her salad when Sabrina appeared beside her, hand clutching a flute of champagne, eyes glittering with mischief. "Claire, come meet Daniel's family," she chirped, looping her arm through Claire's before she could protest. Claire's stomach twisted. "Sabrina, I really don't." "Nonsense," her sister cut her off. "You've been hiding in this corner all night." Sabrina pulled her toward a table surrounded by polished, elegant people. Daniel Whitmore's relatives, men in tailored suits, women dripping in pearls. They turned as Sabrina approached, smiling politely. "And this," Sabrina announced with theatrical warmth, "is my sister, Claire. She's our little career woman. Still focused on work instead of finding someone special." The words hung in the air, deceptively sweet but loaded with poison. Claire's cheeks flushed. She could practically feel the pity radiating from their polished smiles. A tall woman with silver hair, Mrs. Wellington, Daniel's aunt, patted Claire's arm. "Oh dear, don't worry," she said kindly, though her tone carried the weight of superiority. "There's someone for everyone. Have you tried church groups? My nephew met his wife at a prayer circle." Sabrina laughed lightly, a sound that sliced through Claire like a blade. "Claire's very independent. Aren't you, sis?" she said, twisting the word independent into something shameful. Claire swallowed hard. "I just haven't found the right person yet," she managed, her voice steady but tight. Mrs. Wellington smiled knowingly. "Well, you can't wait forever, dear. My daughter waited too long, and now she's 45 with fertility issues." Laughter rippled through the group. Sabrina's laugh was the loudest. Claire wanted to disappear. The humiliation didn't stop there. One by one, Daniel's colleagues stopped by, each offering unsolicited advice like they were doing her a favor. "You just need to lower your expectations," said Joseph, one of Daniel's business partners. "You never know," added Christopher, a family friend. "My aunt found love at 50, with a widower who had 6 kids." Even the photographer joined in. When it came time for family photos, he asked if she had a plus one, then looked confused when she said no. Sabrina made sure to keep her nearby for every spontaneous photo opportunity. Her hand on Daniel's arm, her smile wide, her voice sugar-coated with mock affection. "Claire, lean in. We need a picture of both Bennett sisters, the married one and the future one." The room chuckled softly. Claire smiled for the camera, every muscle in her face aching to hold the expression. Inside, she was breaking. When the flash went off, she caught her reflection in a mirror behind the photographer, her painted smile, her glassy eyes, the forced grace of someone holding herself together by a thread. For a moment, she wondered if Sabrina would ever stop. But then she realized Sabrina didn't want to stop. This wasn't thoughtless cruelty. It was deliberate, calculated. And for the first time, Claire understood something important. If her sister found joy in making her small, then the only real revenge would be standing tall where Sabrina least expected it. That chance was coming sooner than either of them knew. As the evening wore on, the reception reached its peak. Music swelling, champagne flowing, and Sabrina soaking up every ounce of admiration. She was radiant, basking in the glow of her own perfection. Claire lingered at the edge of the dance floor, trying to disappear among the guests. She kept her smile polite, her laughter soft, her glass half full enough to blend in, not enough to draw attention. But attention always found her when Sabrina was near. When the DJ announced it was time for the bouquet toss, the crowd erupted in excitement. The unmarried women began gathering at the center of the floor, chattering and laughing. "Come on, Claire," someone called. She shook her head. "No, I'm fine, really." But Sabrina's sharp voice cut through the crowd. "Oh, don't be such a bore. You have to come, Claire. Tradition's tradition." Dozens of eyes turned toward her. Claire froze for a moment, then forced a smile and stepped forward. Sabrina grinned triumphantly. "That's my sister. Everyone make some space. She's got long arms. Give her a fair chance." The laughter stung more than it should have. Sabrina turned her back to the crowd, bouquet raised high. Her voice floated dramatically over the microphone. "Ready, ladies? Whoever catches this will be next to walk down the aisle." Claire folded her arms, trying not to look too invested. The flowers soared into the air, petals scattering like confetti. The bouquet arced, then, as if in slow motion, landed squarely against Claire's chest. The crowd gasped, then burst into cheers and teasing shouts. "It's a sign. Your turn, Claire. Better start shopping for a dress." Claire's face flushed hot. She hadn't even moved. The bouquet had just found her. Sabrina turned, mock surprise plastered on her face. "Oh my God, Claire. I can't believe it landed on you." Her tone was syrupy sweet, but her eyes gleamed with satisfaction. Then, as laughter rippled through the room, Sabrina added the line that broke the air in two. "Well, maybe this means you'll finally stop being my maid of honor and start being someone's bride." The crowd erupted again, half in amusement, half in awkward sympathy. Claire stood frozen, the bouquet trembling in her hands. For a split second, she saw everything. Sabrina's smug smile, Daniel's polite but distant expression, their parents' nervous laughter, and the sea of judgmental eyes watching her like a performer in someone else's show. Then she exhaled. Slowly. Controlled. Her fingers tightened around the bouquet before she placed it gently on the table beside her. "You should keep it, Sabrina," she said, her voice calm but cutting. "Seems like you still need a reminder of what marriage really means." A hush fell. Sabrina blinked, the smile faltering just a little. Claire turned and walked off the dance floor, leaving her sister standing under the chandelier, bouquetless, for the first time all evening. She slipped outside into the cool night air, her heels clicking against the marble steps. For a moment she just breathed, really breathed, for the first time all day. Somewhere inside, laughter and music roared on. But out here, beneath the silver wash of moonlight, something inside Claire steadied. She wasn't angry anymore. She was awake, and she knew without question that the next move would be hers, and hers alone. The night was wearing on when the DJ's voice echoed through the speakers again. "Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the groom's toast." Applause rippled through the hall as Daniel Whitmore, the picture of composure in his tailored navy suit, rose from his seat. He adjusted his cufflinks, clinked his glass and smiled. "Thank you everyone for being here tonight," he began warmly. "It's been an incredible day, celebrating love, family and new beginnings. Sabrina, glowing beside him, slipped her hand into his. She looked every bit the fairy tale bride, until Daniel took a slow breath and glanced across the room, directly at Claire Bennett. The shift was subtle, but Claire noticed it immediately. So did everyone watching. Daniel cleared his throat. Before I met Sabrina, he continued, I wasn't in a great place. My life looked perfect from the outside, but I was falling apart. My father had passed, my business was collapsing, and I'd lost almost everything I thought defined me. The crowd fell silent, the sincerity in his tone drawing them in. He paused, eyes flickering toward Claire again. But then someone came along who helped me when no one else would. Not because she had to, not because she wanted anything in return, but because she believed in kindness when I'd forgotten what that felt like. Claire's breath caught. Her fingers tightened around her glass. Daniel's voice softened. She encouraged me to get back up. She connected me with investors, gave me advice, and reminded me that a person's worth isn't measured by what they own, but by what they give. Whispers began to stir across the tables. Sabrina's smile had frozen, her hand slipping slightly from Daniel's arm. He smiled faintly. And without that person, I wouldn't be standing here today. Not as the man I've become, not with the success I have, not even with the courage to love again. He raised his glass. So tonight, I want to thank the person who truly saved me. Claire Bennett. The hall went still. All eyes turned to her. Claire froze, her heart hammering in her chest as a stunned silence swept through the crowd. Sabrina's expression darkened, her jaw tightening as Daniel continued, oblivious to, or perhaps deliberately ignoring her fury. Claire, he said sincerely, you helped me rebuild my life when I didn't believe it could be rebuilt. You were my compass when I was lost. You didn't ask for recognition, but you deserve it. He looked directly at her now. Thank you for everything. Claire's lips parted, but no sound came out. The applause that followed was hesitant at first, then genuine, rolling through the hall like thunder. Sabrina's face burned crimson. She forced a laugh, her voice trembling with strain. Well, isn't that sweet? She said tightly. My husband's so sentimental. But her eyes, those calculating, cold eyes, were locked on Claire like daggers. For the first time all night, it wasn't Claire who looked small. It was Sabrina. The moment Daniel Whitmore finished his toast, the air in the reception hall shifted. The applause faded into uneasy murmurs as the guests exchanged glances, unsure how to process what they just witnessed. At the head table, Sabrina Whitmore's flawless smile had hardened into something brittle. Her manicured fingers tightened around her champagne flute, the glass trembling just enough to make the beads of condensation ripple. Claire sat still, eyes lowered, her face calm, but inside, her heart raced like a trapped bird. She hadn't expected this. She'd never told anyone about helping Daniel years ago. It was supposed to stay private, a favor to a friend in crisis, not something to be broadcast at his wedding. But now it was out, and everyone was looking at her differently. Claire! Sabrina's voice sliced through the tension, syrupy and sharp. What a touching tribute, huh? The nearby guests chuckled awkwardly, trying to defuse the tension. Claire forced a polite smile. I didn't know he was going to say that. Oh, I'm sure, Sabrina said tightly. You always did have a knack for being in the right place at the right time. Her words dripped with venom disguised as charm, but Daniel, still holding the microphone, caught it. Sabrina, he said gently but firmly, I meant every word. Claire was there when no one else was. You know that. The crowd fell silent again. Sabrina's eyes flashed. Of course I know, she said, her voice trembling between a laugh and a snarl. You told me 1,000,000 times about your dear friend Claire. I just didn't realize you'd be thanking her instead of your wife on our wedding night. Gasps echoed around the room. Daniel's composure slipped for the first time. That's not what I meant, he said, but the damage was done. Sabrina rose abruptly, her white gown shimmering under the chandeliers. You know what, Daniel? Maybe you should have married your savior instead. Clearly, she means more to you than your own bride. The silence was suffocating. Claire's chest tightened. Sabrina, stop. This isn't. But Sabrina wasn't listening. Her voice grew louder, echoing through the hall. No, let's talk about it. Let's all toast to my perfect sister, who somehow manages to make every moment about her, even at my wedding. Her voice cracked on the last word. Guests shifted uncomfortably. Some avoided eye contact. Others whispered behind napkins. The fairy tale wedding had turned into a live drama no one could look away from. Daniel ran a hand over his face, exhaling heavily. Enough, he said quietly. This isn't who we are. But Claire could see it, the truth unraveling between them. The fragile perfection Sabrina had built around her image was crumbling, brick by glittering brick. Claire stood slowly. I'm sorry, she said, her voice clear and steady. That speech wasn't planned and I didn't ask for it. But maybe it's time we all stop pretending everything's perfect. Her words hung in the air, cutting through the tension like glass. Then, without another glance at her sister or Daniel, Claire turned and walked out of the hall, leaving whispers, gasps, and shattered illusions behind her. For once, she wasn't running from humiliation. She was walking toward freedom. The morning after the wedding should have been filled with joy, laughter, and a glowing honeymoon departure. Instead, Sabrina Whitmore woke to a nightmare. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Messages, missed calls, and notifications flooded in. Most from people she barely knew, others from friends she desperately wished hadn't seen the videos circulating online, because someone had captured everything. The argument, the toast, the humiliation. Every second of her meltdown had been recorded and shared. The clip titled, "Bride Loses It After Groom Praises Another Woman in His Wedding Speech," had gone viral overnight. Hundreds of comments poured in beneath it. Poor sister. The groom clearly married the wrong one. That bride's attitude screams insecurity. Sabrina scrolled through them in disbelief, her hands trembling. The online world was brutal, mercilessly dissecting her expressions, her tone, her behavior. The same charm she'd used to manipulate her image for years was now her undoing. Her mother, Margaret, called first. "Sabrina," she said carefully, "what happened last night? Your aunt just sent me a video." "I don't want to talk about it," Sabrina snapped, pacing the hotel room. "This is all Claire's fault. She planned this." Margaret sighed. "Darling, you can't blame Claire for Daniel's words." That only made Sabrina angrier. "Of course I can. She's been waiting for this moment her entire life, to embarrass me." Her voice cracked. She threw the phone onto the bed and sank to the floor, gripping her knees. For once, there was no mirror nearby to admire her reflection. No audience to applaud her beauty or charm. Just silence. Across town, Claire sat in her small apartment, sipping coffee while her phone pinged endlessly. People were sharing clips, tagging her, calling her the mysterious sister. She didn't respond to any of them. She didn't want fame or pity. What she wanted was peace. But Daniel's name flashing on her screen made her pause. She hesitated, then answered. "Claire." His voice came through, quiet but filled with remorse. "I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt anyone. I just wanted people to know the truth." "I know," she said softly. "But sometimes the truth has a price." He sighed. "She's furious. I don't think our marriage is going to survive this." Claire didn't reply. The weight of everything, the humiliation, the years of rivalry, the wreckage left behind, hung heavy in the space between them. "Daniel," she said finally, "take care of yourself. Both of you. I'm done being the reason for anyone's pain." When she hung up, she felt lighter than she had in years. Meanwhile, Sabrina sat staring at her reflection in the hotel mirror. Her mascara was smudged, her eyes swollen from tears, her once perfect hair falling in disarray. For the first time, she didn't see the flawless woman she'd spent years pretending to be. She saw the cracks, the insecurity, the envy, the loneliness that had always been there, hiding behind her glittering smile. And it terrified her. Because this time, there was no one left to blame but herself. Months passed since Sabrina's wedding disaster, and life had a quiet golden rhythm for Claire Bennett. The chaos, humiliation, and family drama were behind her, replaced by something she had almost forgotten: peace and love that felt real. It had started the night of the wedding with Ethan Whitmore, Daniel's cousin from Boston, the man who had stepped in when she was humiliated, offering a smile, a hand, and the pretense of companionship. That pretense had blossomed into something genuine. Ethan wasn't just charming or wealthy. He was attentive, kind, and curious about the world she inhabited. He remembered details she thought no one noticed: her favorite cafe, the marketing campaign she'd been working on for months, the way she described the cliffs of Ireland during her solo trip last year. 3 months later, their relationship was official. 6 months after that, they had moved in together into a charming apartment overlooking the river. And exactly 1 year after Sabrina's wedding, Ethan proposed in the same grand hotel where it had all begun, kneeling in the ballroom where golden lights had once mocked her. Claire's phone buzzed with a call from her mother, Margaret, who spoke in a tone halfway between excitement and disbelief. "Claire, are you serious? Ethan here? At the hotel? Oh, this is incredible." "Yes, Mom," Claire said with a serene smile. "It's perfect. And it feels right." She didn't need her sister's validation anymore. Sabrina had spent years building a narrative where Claire was the lonely, unsuccessful one. But now the roles had reversed, not with cruelty but with life's natural justice. Their engagement announcement created waves. Friends, co-workers, and even distant family members gushed over Ethan, the accomplished, intelligent man who had captured Claire's heart. Sabrina's reaction was predictably catastrophic. She tried to maintain her composure, but Claire could see the forced politeness in her eyes. But this time Claire didn't care. The satisfaction wasn't in seeing her sister falter. It was in knowing that she had finally stopped living under her shadow. The wedding itself was smaller, intimate, and filled with genuine joy. There were no power plays, no humiliations, no orchestrated moments to make anyone feel less than. The focus was on love, laughter, and celebration, the kind that didn't come with an audience of critics. Sabrina gave a toast at Claire's wedding, attempting to reclaim some sense of grace. She praised Claire, admitted she was proud, and complimented Ethan. But Claire listened politely, knowing the words came from a place of discomfort rather than sincerity. And yet she forgave. Not because Sabrina deserved it, but because she no longer needed to carry the weight of her sister's bitterness. As Claire and Ethan danced their first dance, the room full of friends and family who truly cared about them, she felt a calm she had never experienced before. For the first time, life wasn't a game of comparison, competition, or revenge. She glanced around, her hand in Ethan's, the warmth of his presence grounding her. The past, the humiliation, the rivalry, the cruel comments had shaped her, but it didn't define her. Sometimes the universe has a sense of humor. Sometimes the people who try to hurt you most end up guiding you to exactly what you need. Claire smiled. Love, respect, and happiness, real, lasting, and earned, were finally hers. And for the first time in her life, she didn't just survive the story. She thrived.